Markie Post was one of the most
quick-witted,
beloved
sharp-dressed
actresses on
attorney
television
who
during
stole-
the 1980s and 1990s. She became famous for her roles in popular TV shows, bringing warmth and humor to millions of homes across America. But after years of being in the spotlight, she seemed to disappear from our screens, leaving many fans wondering what happened to her. The real story of her life is much more complex and moving than most people ever knew. Behind her cheerful smile and funny moments on TV, there was a private journey filled with unexpected changes, career transformations, and a personal struggle that would shape her final years. Before Markie Post became a household name, she was quietly building her career in Hollywood, not in front of the cameras, but behind them. She was born on November 4, 1950, in Palo Alto, California. Her family valued creativity and learning. Her father, Richard Post, worked as a scientist, while her mother, Marilee, was a poet. Even though she grew up in this creative environment, Markie's path to fame was far from straight or simple. After graduating from Lewis and Clark College in Oregon, Markie didn't immediately jump into acting. Instead, she took a job working in television production. This turned out to be perfect training for what would come later in her career. She learned how television worked from the inside out. One of her first jobs was working on a game show called Split Second. Later, she worked as an associate producer on a quiz show called Double Dare, which was different from the kids' show that came later on Nickelodeon. This one was hosted by Alex Trebek, who would later become famous for hosting Jeopardy! These early jobs taught Markie important lessons about television. She learned about timing, pacing, and how to build moments for the biggest impact. But perhaps her most unusual early job, and one that fans still remember fondly, was working as a card dealer on the NBC game show Card Sharks. She wore glamorous gowns and maintained a professional smile while turning over cards with perfect showmanship. While this might have seemed like a simple job, it was actually her first real experience in front of television cameras. It helped her develop the confidence and poise that would later become part of her signature style on screen. Even though she had steady work behind the scenes, Markie felt restless. She wanted to do more than just help contestants or deal cards. She began studying acting seriously and started auditioning for small parts, even if it meant starting at the very bottom of the ladder. Her first acting roles were modest. She appeared in single episodes of shows like Chips and Barnaby Jones. Each small role was a step away from the safety of production work and toward the uncertain world of acting. This was a risky move. At that time, Hollywood was full of women trying to become actresses, many of whom had better connections or more obvious opportunities than Markie did. But she had something special that couldn't be manufactured or bought. She had a natural warmth that made people like her immediately, combined with intelligence that showed she was more than just a pretty face. This combination would soon lead to roles that let her show off both her charm and her talent for comedy. Her big breakthrough was still years away, but she was laying the foundation for future success. When the right opportunity finally came along, it would test not only her acting ability, but also her skill at standing out among a cast that was already filled with established stars. By the late 1970s, Markie Post was no longer just a production assistant hoping for the occasional audition. She had worked hard in production offices, on game show stages, and through countless casting calls. She was finally starting to lay, and roles that gave her more than just a brief moment on screen. The journey from working behind the cameras to being in front of them had been gradual, but by the early 1980s, her persistence was starting to pay off. The real turning point came in 1982 when she joined the cast of a primetime network show called The Fall Guy. This action-adventure series starred Lee Majors as a Hollywood stuntman who also worked as a bounty hunter in his spare time. The show was packed with exciting stunts, high-speed car chases, and larger-than-life characters. Markie played Terry Michaels, a bail bondswoman who kept the business running smoothly and helped keep the team organized. Terry was smart, resourceful, and quick with clever comebacks. She was a character who could hold her own alongside stuntmen, bounty hunters, and all of television's most outrageous escape scenes. This role was a significant step forward in Markie's career. The Fall Guy wasn't just a small guest appearance. It was a commitment to appear in multiple seasons on a network show that reached millions of viewers every week. This exposure introduced her to a much larger audience and proved that she could handle a regular role with both comedic charm and dramatic believability. The show also helped her build a valuable reputation among producers and casting directors as someone who was dependable, professional, and easy to work with. These qualities often made the difference between getting the next job and being forgotten in Hollywood's competitive environment. Still, as important as the Fall Guy was for her career, her most famous and beloved role was yet to come. In 1984, a show called Night Court was making its mark as one of NBC's most unusual and unpredictable sitcoms. This courtroom comedy was set in a Manhattan municipal night court that was presided over by an eccentric judge named Harry Stone. The show had already built a devoted following thanks to its mix of absurd humor, and heartfelt moments. When the role of public defender Christine Sullivan became available in the show's third season, Markie grabbed the opportunity, and everything changed for her. Christine Sullivan was different from many sitcom characters of that era. She was intelligent and had strong principles, yet she often found herself caught up in the whirlwind of chaos that seemed to follow the court's bizarre cases. Markie brought Christine to life with a perfect blend of intelligence and warmth, making the character both relatable and admirable. Viewers quickly connected with her. She served as the steady moral compass in a room full of outlandish personalities, yet she was never boring or preachy. Over 6 seasons, Markie's portrayal turned Christine into much more than just a comedic character type. She gave Christine layers and depth, creating someone who could deliver a sharp legal argument in one scene and then show vulnerability and heart in the next. This versatility made Christine Sullivan one of the most beloved characters in Night Court's ensemble cast. Fans tuned in week after week, not just for the laughs, but to see how Christine would handle whatever absurd situation came next. The chemistry between Markie and her co-stars was undeniable and special. Harry Anderson played the likable Judge Harry Stone, John Larroquette portrayed the delightfully self-serving prosecutor Dan Fielding, and Richard Mall played the towering bailiff Bull. Together, they formed one of television's most memorable casts. The series became a cornerstone of NBC's must-see TV lineup, and Christine Sullivan was one of the main reasons audiences kept coming back for more. As Night Court's popularity grew, Markie became a true household name. She appeared on talk shows, graced magazine covers, and even made comedic cameo appearances in other TV series. All of this cemented her status as a familiar and well-loved television personality. Yet behind all the smiles and interviews, she was fully aware of the realities of the entertainment industry. Television fame was like a double-edged sword. It could open doors and create opportunities, but it could also make it very difficult to be seen as anything other than the role that made you famous. This awareness would prove vital when the inevitable happened. In 1992, after 9 successful seasons, Night Court closed its doors for good. For many actors, the end of such a defining role can feel like stepping off a cliff into the unknown. Roles dry up, typecasting takes hold, and careers can stall or even end. But for Markie, this wasn't the end of her story. Instead, it was a chance to reinvent herself once again, proving that she was much more than just Christine Sullivan. When Night Court wrapped up its 9-season run in 1992, many people expected that Markie Post might take a step back and enjoy the kind of comfortable semi-retirement that often follows a successful hit series. But quietly stepping away was never her style. Almost immediately, she landed another starring role, this time in a CBS sitcom called Hearts Afire, where she worked alongside the hugely popular John Ritter. The premise of Hearts Afire evolved and changed during its run. It began in a Washington, D.C. political office where Ritter played a speechwriter and Post played a congressional aide. This setup allowed Markie to showcase a sharper, more grounded style of comedy compared to the idealistic charm she had brought to Christine Sullivan. Her new character was witty, sophisticated, and able to exchange clever dialogue with Ritter at a pace that kept scenes moving quickly and entertainingly. When the network decided to shift the show's focus in later seasons to a small-town newspaper setting, the humor took on a warmer, more character-driven tone. Markie adapted seamlessly to this change, proving that she could pivot from rapid-fire political satire to the more relaxed rhythms of small-town story, telling without losing her comedic edge or effectiveness. Although Hearts Afire lasted only 3 seasons, it reaffirmed Markie's ability to anchor a show as the lead actress and kept her firmly in the public eye. She continued to work steadily throughout the 1990s, moving with impressive ease between different types of shows and genres. She appeared in guest spots on popular series like The Love Boat, The New Adventures of Old Christine, and Will Grace, charming audiences with appearances that often ended up stealing the entire episode. She also took on more dramatic roles in television movies and crime dramas, showing that her acting range extended well beyond sitcoms and comedy. Then came a surprise move in 1998 with a brief but unforgettable role in the hugely successful comedy movie There's Something About Mary. Playing Cameron Diaz's exuberantly inappropriate mother, Markie threw herself completely into the film's over-the-top humor. Even though her screen time was relatively short, she made a strong and lasting impression, demonstrating once again that she could deliver a punchline with precision and fearlessness. The film's massive box office success meant that millions of viewers, including some who had never seen Night Court, were reminded of her impressive comedic skills. As the 2000s began, Markie embraced the life of a seasoned character actress, appearing in an eclectic and interesting mix of projects. On the medical comedy Scrubs, she played the quirky mother of one of the main characters, Elliot Reed, adding layers of eccentricity to the show's already colorful cast of characters. Her guest appearance on the comedy series 30 Rock was equally memorable, delivering sharp comedic moments in a single episode that fans still remember and talk about today. She also ventured into more grounded dramatic territory with appearances in shows like Chicago PDP, proving that she could handle serious, emotionally charged material just as effectively as she handled comedy. Markie even dipped her toes into darker humor with a guest role on the zombie-themed comedy Santa Clarita Diet, holding her own alongside a cast led by Drew Barrymore and Timothy Olyphant. It was yet another example of her adaptability, which had become a hallmark of her career and allowed her to remain relevant across multiple decades and shifting television trends. Her final recurring role came in 2018 with The Kids Are All Right, a warm 1970s set sitcom that suited her perfectly. Once again, she balanced humor with heart, delivering a performance that felt like a culmination of everything she had learned and refined over her decades in the business. She showed impeccable timing, genuine warmth, and the ability to make even a supporting role completely unforgettable. Yet, as the credits continued to roll on screen, changes were happening behind the scenes that the public couldn't see. Markie's public appearances grew less frequent, and her once regular television interviews became increasingly rare. To casual observers, it might have looked like she was simply enjoying a well-earned slower pace, perhaps choosing to focus on family and personal projects after more than 3 decades in the demanding entertainment industry. But in reality, there was a far more private and difficult reason for her gradual retreat from the spotlight, one that would only come to light much later. In the years following her last major television roles, Markie Post's public profile shifted noticeably and deliberately. She was no longer the constant presence in interviews, late-night talk show appearances, and entertainment news segments that she had once been. This change was not the result of waning interest from the industry or a lack of opportunities, but rather a conscious choice on her part. Markie was never the type to cultivate headlines just for the sake of staying visible or relevant. She had never been someone who fed gossip magazines or turned her personal life into material for public consumption. To those who knew her well, she was fiercely private about personal matters, but endlessly loyal to her friends and family. She was the type of friend who would appear at your doorstep with a homemade cake, a small gift she had sewn by hand, or a perfectly timed joke to lift your spirits when you needed it most. Yet she would never open up about her own struggles or challenges unless there was a true need to do so. This instinct for privacy became more than just a personality trait in the final chapter of her life. It became a protective shield. In 2017, Markie began what those closest to her later described as a nearly 4-year battle with a serious illness. For most public figures, such news quickly becomes a major storyline in its own right, complete with official statements to the press, social media updates, and interviews about the journey and struggle. But that approach was never Markie's way of handling things. She refused to let her diagnosis define her in the public eye, or even worse, overshadow the substantial body of work she had built over decades of dedication to her craft. Rather than retreat entirely from public life, she made the remarkable choice to keep working whenever possible. While undergoing treatments that would have completely sidelined many people, she still appeared in projects like The Kids Are All Right and took on guest roles when her health and energy levels allowed. These appearances were not just about maintaining her career or staying active in the industry. They were an act of personal defiance against the idea that illness should dictate every aspect of her life. She wanted to be remembered as an actress doing what she loved most, not as a patient defined and limited by her medical condition. Colleagues who worked with her during this challenging time later recalled being struck by her unwavering sense of humor and positive attitude. Even on days when the treatments left her visibly tired and fatigued, she would step onto the set with the same warmth and quick wit that had endeared her to cast and crew members for decades. She kept the atmosphere light and positive, cracking jokes, offering encouragement to others, and focusing conversations on her colleagues rather than on herself or her own situation. She never asked for special accommodations beyond what was absolutely necessary for her health, and she never sought pity or sympathy from anyone. If anything, she consistently downplayed her own discomfort so that the work and the camaraderie among the team could remain the primary focus. Her family later shared that she approached this difficult period with what they described as quiet resilience and inner strength. She leaned heavily on the support of her closest relationships, particularly her husband, writer and producer Michael A. Ross, and her two daughters, whom she adored and fiercely protected from the intrusive glare of media attention. She made the conscious decision to keep her personal battle completely private, not only for her own peace of mind, but also to shield her loved ones from the intrusive and often overwhelming attention of the media. This commitment to privacy reflected the same values that had guided her throughout her entire career: authenticity, dignity, and a refusal to be defined by anything other than her work and her character. On August 7, 2021, the devastating news broke that Markie Post had passed away at the age of 70. For fans who had not seen obvious signs of her declining health, the announcement came as both shocking and deeply saddening. The statement released by her family described her as someone who had faced her illness with remarkable strength, grace, and an unyielding spirit. This sentiment felt entirely consistent with the woman that her friends, colleagues, and audiences had known and loved for so many years. She had fought her battle in silence and privacy, but she had lived her life and conducted her career in a way that spoke volumes about her character. Yet even this poignant final chapter does not fully capture or define who Markie Post truly was as a person. Beyond the scripts, the stage lights, and the applause, there was a side to her that few people outside her inner circle ever truly saw. This was a side marked not by celebrity status, but by small, meaningful human gestures that left a permanent mark on those fortunate enough to know her personally. Away from the sound stages and press interviews, Markie Post's life was defined less by red carpets and glamorous events, and more by simple acts of genuine kindness. Friends and family members often described her as a deeply creative soul who expressed her affection and care through handmade gestures and personal touches. She was well known for baking elaborate cakes completely from scratch. These weren't generic sheet cakes from a bakery, but intricate designs that showed she had invested hours of thought, time, and care into creating something special. For a coworker celebrating a personal milestone, she might sew custom curtains for their first apartment or hand-stitch a personalized gift that showed how much attention she paid to what mattered to them. These were not grand public gestures meant for publicity or recognition. They were quiet, personal acts that spoke to the true depth of her character and the genuine care she felt for others. Her sense of humor was equally memorable and impactful. Colleagues frequently recalled how she could diffuse tension on a film or television set with a perfectly timed quip, often making fun of herself to ensure that even long, exhausting working days would end with laughter and good feelings. She had a special talent for making everyone feel seen and appreciated, from the lead actors to the crew members who spent their days hauling cables and moving equipment. Many younger actors who had the opportunity to work alongside her remembered her encouragement and support as a crucial boost in their early careers. She understood how challenging it could be to break into the entertainment industry, and she made it a point to offer guidance and reassurance to those who were just starting their journeys. Markie's warmth and generosity extended far beyond the entertainment world. She was a dedicated and loving mother to her two daughters, successfully balancing a demanding and unpredictable career with a family life that she intentionally kept shielded from the spotlight and media attention. Her marriage to Michael A. Ross was marked by the kind of mutual respect and quiet partnership that was rarely seen or celebrated in Hollywood's tabloid culture. The couple maintained a strong and loving relationship for decades, weathering both the high points and the inevitable low points of life in the entertainment industry without ever becoming the subject of scandal columns or gossip magazines. She also generously gave her time and celebrity status to various charitable causes, lending her presence to events and fundraisers without demanding attention or recognition for herself. Whether she was helping to support children's health organizations or lending a hand to community-based projects in her area, she viewed her celebrity as a useful tool that could help others, rather than as an end goal in itself. When the news of her passing spread, the outpouring of tributes from colleagues, friends, and fans painted a remarkably consistent picture of who she was as a person. Markie Post was remembered as someone who not only brought memorable characters to life on screen, but who also made a real and tangible difference in the lives of those around her. For her millions of fans around the world, she would always be remembered as Christine Sullivan Fro, M. Night Court, or Terry Michaels from The Fall Guy. For those who had the privilege of knowing her personally, she would always be remembered as the friend who consistently showed up with a homemade cake, a well-timed joke, or a helping hand exactly when it mattered most. Markie Post's professional career gave audiences characters that were intelligent, warm, and completely unforgettable. Yet her true and lasting legacy lies in the grace, humor, and kindness she carried into every moment of her life, both public and private. She faced her greatest personal challenges quietly and without seeking attention or sympathy, and she never stopped giving generously of herself on screen, to her colleagues in the industry, and to her loved ones at home. To millions of television viewers, she will always be fondly remembered as Christine Sullivan from Night Court, the principled public defender who brought both intelligence and warmth to that beloved sitcom. To those who truly knew her as a person, she will forever be remembered as the loyal friend who had an amazing ability to make life brighter and more meaningful for everyone around her. Remembering Markie Post properly means honoring not just the memorable roles she played throughout her career, but also the remarkable, generous, and loving person she was behind all of those characters.